All right, we've got an update on the Keion White situation. He underwent successful surgery on his ankle. That is the good news. It was a non-life threatening injury and also a non-career threatening injury. So we'll get a timetable, I'm sure, at some point in the next couple of weeks. Maybe the NFL Combine at the end of this month is when we get answers. But we also have a lot of crazy details about the case published here up on the San Francisco Standard. I did not write this article. This is Jonah Owen Lamb, but he did cite the police report in the situation, and it involves the rapper Lil Baby. And there was a party, and I think this was an after party after Lil Baby had a performance in San Francisco on Sunday night. It was down in the Mission District. It was on 14th and Mission Street at Dahlia, a bar and a nightclub there on the 1700 block of Mission Street. And according to the police report, which is cited in this article, a witness interviewed by police said that Jones' entourage, and Jones is Lil Baby. Dominique Jones is his name. Jones' entourage was on the party's main floor and tried to enter Keion White's private event, which was on a bottom floor of this bar, Dahlia. White then got into an argument with Lil Baby, the rapper, the witness told police. When the witness went upstairs to ask for the management's help to defuse the situation, he said he heard two gunshots. After the witness rushed downstairs, he found Keion White, the 49ers defensive lineman, shot in the left leg. The witness said he did not know who shot Keion White. Another party attendee interviewed said that she did not see the shooting, but heard four gunshots as she tried to go downstairs. So anyway, this is it's making the rounds. This is national news at this point, but the San Francisco Standard had a lot of the details. You can go ahead and check out the article. The bottom line regarding Keion White's injuries, though, as we know at this moment, is that he underwent surgery yesterday on Monday afternoon in San Francisco, and that surgery was successful. As far as the details behind the shooting, the most in-depth account you're going to get of that is here through Jonah's article, which cited the San Francisco Police Department police report. Shooting at about 4 a.m. on the night of Super Bowl Sunday. Now, again, Keion White traded from the Patriots to the 49ers. New England was in the Super Bowl. It still is unclear if New England's involvement in the Super Bowl was the reason that White was hosting this party. According to the police report, it does sound like Lil Baby and his entourage approached Keion White's private party, not the other way around, but we don't know any details beyond that. We do know that the 49ers released a statement yesterday saying that they would provide more information when the time was appropriate, and they did provide more information regarding the surgery after White had undergone that surgery, and it was indeed successful. From a football perspective, obviously, there's worry about the ankle, and the non-career threatening news is good news for Keion White and good news for the 49ers after he was a productive player for them following the trade from New England. Big picture, I mean, it just never ends. Whether it be, like I said yesterday, Sunday was a day that didn't involve the 49ers on the field, but we saw Kyle Shanahan and Fred Warner on the NBC broadcast. We saw the Seahawks use the 49ers locker room and then smoke cigars and pour liquor in the 49ers locker room. And then hours later at this post-Super Bowl party, we learned of this news. We learned of the fact that 49ers player Keion White had to undergo surgery because of shooting, because he got shot in the ankle at an after party in the Mission District, and this has become national news because not only was Keion White shot, that's an NFL player, but because this involved, or the incident involved. I'm not saying that Lil Baby shot him, but the incident did involve a more prominent name from the pop culture community in Lil Baby. So just a wild, crazy convergence, and now here we are picking up the pieces, trying to figure out exactly what happened. But I would recommend that you read this article if you want some more of the details. I'm going to wade into the comment section here. We can see all that's going on. What are people talking about? Here's a question. Is he going to be all right to play for the NFL season? Also, how did no one see who shot him? That's ridiculous. I'm not so sure that no one saw. I just think that according to the police report, nobody said who shot him. As of now, it appears that the shooter is still at large. The initial report said that the police had not identified the shooter. Maybe more information will come out. As far as will Keion White be okay to play for the NFL season, I would venture to say yes, just based on the information out there, but I don't have enough to say that definitively. He underwent what the 49ers said was successful surgery on the ankle, and another report indicated that this was not career threatening. We're still basically as far away as possible from the start of the 2026 season. So it's February 10th, and the 49ers will next play in 7 months or so? 2 plus 7 equals 9. They're going to play at some point in early September in Melbourne, Australia. So that should give Keion White some recovery time, but we have to know the exact details of this injury. Somebody said that the substation strikes again. God. I mean, it is wild when I talk about the dramatics of this 49ers team. They didn't play in the Super Bowl. Nobody got hurt for the 49ers in the Super Bowl. They obviously had a ton of injuries that affected their season in 2025, but then this happened very early on Monday morning. 4:06 a.m. was the exact time cited in the police report. So the blows just keep on coming for the 49ers. And I saw this headline, and then I start reading more of the details, and I mean, you could read all about them. They're in that article. You just shake your head, and you know, in this particular situation, you're happy that it wasn't worse, right? That it was the shot in the ankle, that it didn't hit anywhere else. And I'm not going to sit here and try to speculate on things, and I just try to report the facts, and that's what we got from the article on the Standard, which came from the police report, and those are the facts of the situation. You could make your own conclusions, your own judgments beyond that, but what we do know is that White had to undergo that surgery, and White had a successful surgery, so now we're going to find out more about the recovery moving forward. Keion White, when the 49ers traded for him, this was about a week before the trade deadline, was not being used very often anymore by the New England Patriots because they had changed systems defensively with their new head coach, Mike Vrabel. San Francisco, though, thought that this guy could fit really, really well in their four-man front, and they thought that they could use him adaptably, moving from the outside to the inside, defensive end to defensive tackle, and they were right. He was a good rotational pass rushing piece for San Francisco. Gave them a lot from the inside in some critical moments when they really, really needed it, because that pass rush was generally deficient over the course of 2025. I mean, there was a big, big rush that changed the game against the Chicago Bears. That was a big win for San Francisco of Caleb Williams on third down. That came from Keion White. And, you know, one of the reasons that they were so excited to trade for him was that he is still under contract here for 2026 at a very low price. He's only making a little bit more than $1 million in this base salary for this 2026 season. Rookie contract, 4th year. Now Keion White. I mean, this is a contract year coming up for Keion White, trying to prove himself, trying to earn some real money heading into year 5. And he should have a good opportunity, assuming he's healthy enough to do that for the 49ers, assuming that this ankle recovery is going to go well for him. He should have a real opportunity to produce, especially if they get Nick Bosa back this next year. If Michael Williams is back for the 49ers, all of a sudden pass rushing opportunities are going to open up for everybody for San Francisco. So if you can get your force multipliers back, then some of the role players like a Keion White, some of the rotational guys will have much more of an opportunity to deliver, especially if the 49ers do not pick up a premium defensive tackle. Now, maybe they will. Maybe that's going to be on the shopping list this offseason. Maybe they're just going to trust CJ West and Alfred Collins, who were rookies this year. Maybe those guys can be shepherded into their second seasons in the NFL and start to develop some pass rushing productivity. But assuming that those guys remain run stoppers first in 2025, then somebody like Keion White is going to be counted on to deliver the pass rushing juice when he kicks in, like Eric Armstead did on those passing situations. And if that's the case, then he's going to have sack opportunities because he's going to be working against guards who just don't have the length that he does. I mean, Keion is 6'5", 270 plus. He's got long arms. The measurables there are favorable for the rushing pass for the rushing matchups against those shorter, more stout guards. And if he has those opportunities with his ears pinned back and with Bosa and whoever else on the edge occupying a lot of the defense's attention, so he gets to work one-on-one against those guards, this has a chance to be a lucrative season for Keion White, a chance to earn some money heading into 2026. So he's got to get healthy, and he's got to stay out of the situations that we saw on late Sunday night, early Monday morning, 4:06 a.m. And the opportunity should be there in 2026. We have any questions? Somebody saying no metal detectors at Dahlia's. Well, here's one thing. This happened at 4 a.m. and last call in California is at 2 a.m. So this was after hours, and apparently it was a private party. So I guess that's legal. I don't know the exact law here, but it was a public establishment. I'm assuming shut down for what sounds like at least 2 private parties. Keion White had a private party going on, and Lil Baby had a private party going on. And it sounds like the Lil Baby's crew wanted to get in on Keion White's party, and that led to the dispute, which ultimately led to shots being fired. That is according to the police report. That is according to what the San Francisco Standard got from the police report. But beyond that, metal detectors, were they screening people? I don't know. And apparently a gun did get through into there, even if they were. But that's one of our questions here from Rob Ace. Somebody asking, what was the event for anyway? Well, this is the nature of the Super Bowl, right? The Super Bowl happens, and there are concerts, there are after parties, there's a lot of nightlife, and then there are after parties to the after parties. So it leads me to believe that the night just got out of hand. We've already seen video of Puka Nacua on Sunday night. Actually, not too far. The video of Puka wasn't all too far from this incident, although that was hours and hours earlier. Puka Nacua, I think he was on Valencia Street. Looked like he was inebriated, but he wasn't driving. He was just being pushed into one of those black cars. A few blocks away, several hours later, this happened. And I'm just giving you guys a picture of what any city is like after a Super Bowl. You've got a lot of concerts. Lil Baby, I think, performed at the Grand, which is in Soma, the South of Market district of San Francisco. Then you're going to have just bar after parties, and then you're going to have private after parties. I I guess in this situation, these are where bars are rented out after hours. So after the 2 a.m. last call, and stuff can happen. And it appears that that stuff did indeed happen in this case. What's next? The scouting combine? Yes, the NFL scouting combine is coming up in a couple weeks. I believe February 23rd is day one of the NFL combine. So in less than 2 weeks, I'm going to be flying to Indianapolis. It's crazy because whenever you are involved in a Super Bowl, so this year I covered the Super Bowl because it was here in the Bay Area. It is an insanely quick turnaround to the NFL scouting combine in Indianapolis. Now, if you don't make the playoffs like the 49ers didn't in 2024, you've got a long turnaround time before Indy. But this year it's going to be bang bang right to the NFL combine in Indy beginning on February 23rd. I believe I have to fly in there on February 22nd. Maybe I'll fly the 23rd. We'll see when John Lynch is speaking. And that's probably where we're going to get a firmer update on this Keion White situation, how exactly his ankle is doing. It's probably going to take a few days anyway for them to have a firm prognosis coming off of surgery. But the word that we have now is that the operation was successful. Has Raheem Morris been in the building yet? I would assume so, but maybe not. Maybe he's still busy packing up at his previous stop in Atlanta and getting ready to move the family out to the West Coast. I don't think that there's a rush at this point to get out to the building since players aren't there. There's just maybe some guys rehabbing at the building, and the 49ers aren't going to begin doing anything practice related until springtime comes. I think that they're going to want to have Raheem Morris at the NFL Combine, and they're going to want to, start formulating how they're looking for new players and determining the traits and the skill sets that they're looking for. That they're going to need Raheem Morris to be part of that search process. So that comes in a couple weeks. I would assume that right now is a little bit of a buffer period for Raheem to relocate those, since he's going to have to move across country. Joe asks, any information on where the damage was and how severe from the shooting? No. Yes, there is some information, and some of the information is that the operation went well and that it is not career threatening. Beyond that, we don't have the details right now. We'll get some more details, I'm sure, in at least 2 weeks at the NFL Scouting Combine. This is some speculation. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not, but it's from a member. You're saying that I think he was probably having a Super Bowl party to celebrate his former team making the Super Bowl. Yeah, they could have been that, since he was with the Patriots. Seems that Lil Baby thought he had the right to join a party that he wasn't on the list. Could have also been that, and then obviously that escalated to the gunshots. Not a lot great happened at 4 a.m. in this instance is the overhead read that, I think any logical person would have on the situation. And we'll probably find out a little bit more moving forward. What we have found out so far through the police report, 4:06 a.m. shooting, Lil Baby and his crew trying to enter a party hosted by Keion White. Witness in the police report said that he didn't actually see the gunshots or who shot Keion White, but he heard a couple gunshots, ran back down. Police came. I think the response time of the SFPD, I looked this up, was 6 minutes in this case. They took Keion White to the hospital. He underwent surgery on Monday on his ankle. That's what we know so far. Do I think that the 49ers injuries this year are a statistical outlier, or something else. Well, they are a statistical outlier in that they had so many A-list Hall of Fame caliber players hurt. As far as total amount of injuries and total games missed, they're actually not a statistical outlier. Brian Suterer, the doctor, he's based somewhere in the Midwest, that ran a really good statistical analysis on this a couple weeks ago, where he found that the 49ers are one of the most injured teams in the league, but not the most injured teams in the league over the past several seasons, and definitely not an outlier. To be an outlier, you have to be the most injured team in the league by a lot. Now, as far as A-list players getting hurt this past season, yes, that was an outlier. And what Brian Suterer found that was really, I think, interesting, and I think something that helped contextualize this whole thing, was that the 49ers injury situation is much more correlated to age than anything. There is a strong reason to believe that age of the roster has led to a higher injury rate. Now, that ties directly into a lot of A-list players going down, because typically A-list players are going to be older, right? So the older you are in this league, the more likely it is that you will get hurt. The 49ers have built around this A-list core. I think that's the best path forward, but that A-list core has to remain healthy. They have modernized the roster around that core. They got way younger in 2025. They're going to get younger again in 2026. The goal is to get younger and faster. But you can't just be young and fast in this league and expect to win. You have to have some real top-level skill. And the Rams, for example, have built their team in a similar way. A-list pillars, around those A-list pillars, a youth infusion. So at a certain point, those A-list pillars, though, like if this team is going to make a legitimate run and try to win a Super Bowl, those A-list pillars will have to stay generally healthy. You're going to have George Kittle available. You're going to have Christian McCaffrey available, Brock Purdy, Fred Warner, Nick Bosa. Like, those guys need to be on the field for the formula of the 49ers to work. And the second that the 49ers can no longer rely on that, and obviously this year didn't happen, so if this year repeated itself, you were going to get similar results down the road. But the second they can no longer rely on those guys being healthy down the stretch is the second that particular window closes. I think they believe that those guys can stay healthy for 2026. And maybe they have to believe that based on the money allotted and the salary cap situation. But the truth of the matter is that when they did have the majority of those players available, they were firm Super Bowl contenders in 2025. Again, I'll just go back to this. Seattle had the best point differential of any team to ever win a Super Bowl. Any Super Bowl champion, NFL history, the best point differential ever, the Seattle Seahawks. So it's inevitable. You have to say that the Seahawks are one of the greatest teams in NFL history. Well, who beat one of the greatest teams in NFL history in week 1? A relatively healthy 49ers team. Not a fully healthy 49ers team, but a relatively healthy 49ers team beat them in week 1. In fact, the 49ers gave the Seahawks their worst defeat of the season. It was only 4 points, but the Seahawks lost games by 2 points, 3 points, and 4 points, respectively. The 4-point loss came against the 49ers. Nick Bosa ended the game for San Francisco when he registered the strip sack of Sam Darnold. The 49ers saw Brock Purdy deliver on a turf toe. George Kittle scored the opening touchdown, but then exited with a hamstring injury. And they did it without Brandon Ayuk, but the way they were able to do it without Brandon Ayuk is because Ricky Pearsall was healthy and still playing his best football as he did over the first 3 or 4 games of the season. And he caught a big deep pass on what turned out to be the game-winning drive. 49ers clutched up, and they beat the Seattle Seahawks in week 1 when they had enough ammo to do so. When they ran out of that ammunition later in the season, they were no longer able to beat the Seattle Seahawks. But again, the Seahawks are one of the great teams in NFL history. They project to remain at least very good heading into 2026. But a lot of people are looking at this in a way, way too complicated light. They're saying, oh, the Seahawks are running laps around the 49ers and San Francisco, they need to pack it all up. They need to fire John Lynch. And there's no way that they're ever going to catch Seattle. When the reality is that when you watched 2025, a healthy 49ers team actually beat Seattle. It's not to say that a healthy 49ers team will be better than Seattle in 2026 because there's a lot of work to do over the course of this offseason. But it is a strong suggestion that the 49ers, who are in a roster reset year to begin with in 2025, if they just stay on the same track, if they keep on building the speed of this roster, if they keep on making this team younger and infusing it with energy and returning the A-list players to health, if they keep on doing all of those things, then the 49ers should be in very good position to challenge the Seahawks and the Rams in 2026. Because they've got the quarterback and the play caller to do it. That's the most important part of the entire operation. They have Brock Purdy and Kyle Shanahan, and other teams don't. So they're very, very strong at the most important position. Now they need to be healthy and fast around it. And when they were generally healthy in 2025, they were already good enough to beat the Seahawks. Hell, they beat the Rams when they had a skeleton crew in 2025 down at SoFi. So stay the course if you're the 49ers. Stay the course. Find a way into health. Find a way to sustain that health. Do whatever you can on that front, and then turn the corner into 2026 as a team that can challenge in the toughest division in football, because the NFC West is the new SEC. The 49ers might have been the third best team in the NFL in 2025, but they were also the third best team in their own division, which is wild to say, but that's what the SEC was pre-NIL in college football. You have the best teams in all of college football all in one conference. So typically the winner of the conference would end up winning the national championship. We might have another NFC West dominated season in 2026 where the winner of the NFC West is going to be the likely winner of the Super Bowl. Because what happened this year is that the Seahawks won the West. By extension, they won the 1 seed. By extension, they hosted the NFC Championship game. They lost to the Rams when it was down at SoFi, but they beat the Rams both times when it was up at Lumen. And then, of course, the Super Bowl was just a coronation for the Seahawks. The AFC team could not hold a candle to them. I don't think it's crazy to predict that in 2026, the winner of the NFC West will be the 1 seed. That 1 seed is going to get to host the NFC Championship game. So maybe it's at Lumen, maybe it's at Levi's, maybe it's at SoFi Stadium. And then the Super Bowl is going to happen. And if it happens to be the Rams or the 49ers in the Super Bowl, it'll be a Rams or a 49ers home game because the Super Bowl's at SoFi. Be more of a home field advantage for the 49ers down at SoFi than it would be for the Rams. But we're thinking very, very far ahead of ourselves. I will say, though, that the one way that the 49ers can possibly make up for what had to be, just a gut-wrenching watching experience on Sunday night, the Seattle Seahawks celebrating in their locker room. The one way you can make up for that is by celebrating in another division rival's locker room. And you can do that in 2026 because the Rams are hosting the Super Bowl. SoFi is, by the way. This was in the locker room. That's Clint Kubiak on the right, and that's Sam Darnold on the left. Sam's old locker behind him. This was the Seahawks celebrating. I'm just playing this because it's part of the story. I know that 49ers fans won't like it, but the smoke is going to be smelling that way for a while in the locker room. I mean, it's going to take a real deep cleaning for the locker room to be back to its original order. And that's because the Seattle Seahawks, the 49ers, hated rivals, won a Super Bowl using San Francisco's locker room. Look, they brought a Lombardi trophy to the Levi's locker room before the 49ers were able to do that. There's Eric Saubert with the tequila. Eric Saubert, former 49ers tight end. There's JSN with his Coors Light. That's what it looked like in there. And that's what the 49ers have to find a way to avenge moving it forward into 2026. I'm sure we'll have a lot of puke emojis right now in the comment section. Samuel says, this is so frustrating, and if this doesn't fire them up, nothing ever will. Well, the 49ers are plenty fired up. And two things can be true at once. You can look at this and say, this is extremely painful. I think probably more so even the 49ers fans who really don't like this stuff. But Fred Warner said this made us sick to his stomach as well, and that was before the Seahawks even won. You can look at this and you could say, oh boy, this is ugly. But you can also say that the 49ers had a very successful season because you can only play the hand that you're dealt. And they were dealt a really crappy hand with Bosa going down, with Warner going down, with Michael Williams going down, with Purdy out for 8 games. I mean, and playing with turf toe basically throughout the entire season. The 49ers did not have a good setup in 2025. Yet they still won 13 games. In fact, we'll probably never see a 13-win team as beaten up, as injury devastated as the 49ers were. So they showed tremendous resilience to the point where I would say that I had never sensed greater fulfillment in the locker room after a season than this year. And I've covered the 49ers since Shanahan took over in 2017. Even the Super Bowl years, they left a lot of meat on the bone. They left the Super Bowl title on the bone. But this year, it would have taken just a downright miracle to get that far because of how hurt they were. The fact that they got this to 13 wins was downright insane. And I think that needs to be appreciated. The Seahawks deserve their flowers because they built an extremely well-rounded team, one of the great teams in NFL history. They were able to stay healthy for most of the season, and they ended up winning the Super Bowl. Just so happened that it was at Levi Stadium, and they got to use the 49ers locker room. So I get it. That pours salt in the wound for the 49ers and their fans, but it doesn't take away from what the 49ers were able to accomplish, which, by the way, included a win over those Seahawks in week 1 when they were healthier. So for the 49ers moving forward, health is absolutely wealth. San Francisco needs to be healthy, and then obviously they need to check off the list of improvements that are necessary in the offseason. And along those lines, I will leave you with this. The 49ers have $57 million to build this roster in cap space. Now, it's much more complicated than that. And I'm going to go ahead and put the salary cap sheet up on the screen so you guys can see my accounting here. But in general, they have a lot of financial maneuverability this offseason. This is my salary cap worksheet. I can share this all with you in the comment section if you'd like. I do it on the basis of a 53-man roster projection. So as of right now, I have 40 of the 53 spots filled. All of those spots plus the practice squad would cost about $276 million. And we're projecting a salary cap size of $334 million for the 2026 season, which would leave the 49ers with $57.3 million in space. Now, to fill out the rest of the 53-man roster, it'll cost at least 10 to 12 million. So you can cut it down to 45 million in space. But if the 49ers choose to be more expensive with how they fill out the rest of the 53-man roster, which I expect them to be, then it will cut deeper into that space. And they also have to carry over space like they always do into 2027 because unused cap space moves from year to year. It's all part of the 49ers strategy as far as staying financially sustainable. So they probably, I would say, have in effect 25 to 30 million of new cap expenditures that they can put on the 2026 books sustainably. But they can obviously backload the contracts that they give out this year, and that, I think, is a considerable chunk of change. So that could become handy on the trade market. That could become handy on the free agent market. They can restructure some deals. What they have to do is they have to keep this a sustainable wave. They have to surf that wave moving forward. They got into this position because they ran a nice financial reset last off season. They doubled down on A-list pillars, so they stayed in top 5 of spending. They weren't cheap. They just reallocated their money to the actual foundational pillars, and they started to modernize the roster with youth through the NFL draft and through bargain bin free agency. This year, they're going to have to do more of the same as far as the drafting goes, but they can start to augment that A-list core with veteran players through trades or free agency. That's where the financial spending comes in, and that's where the fact that the 49ers have some money should come in very, very handy. All right, that's the update. Everybody can go check out the San Francisco Standard on the Keion White situation. Keion White, Lil Baby altercation obviously led to a shooting in San Francisco. The shooter remains at large, but police say that they don't know who it is. And the police report and all the details can be found here in the linked article up on the San Francisco Standard. Everybody, thank you for watching. We will talk to you next time.